I want to thank the media. The media has really covered me very fair for the last 2 hours. Second, I have to say, in fact, I suggested today, you probably saw that the Democrats have treated Bernie very badly, and frankly, I think he should run as an independent, okay? And I actually do. I think they've treated him very badly. And, you know, the system is a bad system, and whether it's their system or our system, you look at what goes on. But, you know, the best way to beat the system is have evenings like this, where you get record-setting votes, where you get record-setting delegates. I use the analogy of the boxer, you know, when the boxer knocks out the other boxer, you don't have to wait around for a decision. So that's what it is, and that's what happened tonight. That's what happened last week in New York, and that's really what's been happening throughout. We have millions more votes, millions more than Cruz. We have millions more votes than Kasich. I mean, Kasich now, I guess he was 1 in 41, so now he's 1 in 46. Why is he here? I can tell you that if you look, Dr. Ben Carson did much better. He could have hung around and done very well. If you look, Chris Christie did much better. If you look, Marco Rubio did much better. In fact, Marco Rubio right now has more delegates than, Kasich. I mean, he's got more delegates, but so many others. I mean, they've actually done, all they had to do was hang around, but they thought it was inappropriate, and a lot of people don't like seeing it. It's like a spoiled person that just says, I'm just staying for whatever reason. So Kasich, and by the way, as soon as Kasich gets hit with the first negative ad, he's had none. Bing, that's the end of that. You know, it's the only thing he can say. And today we came up even against Hillary, but we will beat Hillary so easily. Break 50, again, with 3 people, it's very hard to break 50. We hit almost 62%, picked up so many delegates. Last week we had 95 delegates in New York State, New York City, the whole thing added up to 95. We picked up almost every single one of them. It was an amazing victory. But this one's a diverse victory. I mean, you go Rhode Island, and you go Maryland, and you go Connecticut, and you go Pennsylvania, and you go, I mean, the whole thing, Delaware, and every one of them was conclusive, and every state is so different. I mean, Governor Kasich and Senator Cruz have really, really hurt themselves with a faulty deal that was defaulted on before they even started. Because Kasich said, well, what do you mean? Aren't they going to vote for me in Indiana? Well, I said, I thought they just made that deal. So what it is politicians, all talk, no action. They can't get it done, and they certainly can't straighten out our country, because we're going to bring back jobs. We're going to take care of our military. We're going to be doing so many things. And to me, especially over the last 2 weeks, because I traveled New York State, and I went to Syracuse and Poughkeepsie and Rome, this Rome, our Rome, New York, as a happening in so many other industries. And I'd get statisticians to give me numbers, and before I leave all the time, give me the numbers, and every single place I go is a disaster. Manufacturing down 40, 45, 55, 60% sometimes in a relatively short period of time. Our jobs are being sucked away from our country, and we're not going to let it happen anymore, folks. We're going to make it very, very difficult to do that. And when companies want to leave this country, our great country, and they want to lay off all of these people that in many cases helped build the country, there will be consequences for that company to pay. And no taxes through a very weak border, which, by the way, our border will be very, very strong, and we will build the wall. Just remember I said it, okay? But when they think they're going to send their product right through this weak border, and they're going to pay no tax and have absolutely no consequence for what they did, it's not going to happen that way. And you know what's going to happen? When we do that, all of a sudden companies are going to say, I'm staying in Syracuse, and I'm staying in Pennsylvania, and I'm staying in Maryland. And I want to thank the people of Maryland. They've been so unfair thing that the pundits never report. When I began the process, we had 17 people, very capable people like Chris, governors, senators, Dr. Ben Carson, very smart, tough, highly accomplished people. 17, a record in the history of politics. 17 people. So I go and I start winning, and I'll win New Hampshire, and I'll get whatever it may be, 32%. And people would say, why did he get 50%? I said, you can't get 50% when you have 16 people. That, he'll be presidential, he'll be not presidential, he'll do that. It's very easy to be presidential. By the way, much easier, but I'm not playing a part. Look, I started off with 17. I'm down now, I'm winning it. It's over. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. These two guys cannot win. There's no path. So why would I change? If you have a football team and you're winning, and then you get to the Super Bowl, you don't change your quarterback, right? So I'm not changing.
In a general election?
A group of 10 people in a conference room, I'm not going to be speaking the same way I spoke in Pennsylvania yesterday to 25,000 people. It's a very different thing. But I'll be saying very similar things. Yes, go ahead. I call her Crooked Hillary. She's crooked. She'll be a horrible president. She knows nothing about job creation. Her husband signed NAFTA, which destroyed this country economically, I will tell you. You look at New York State, you look all over New England, you look at Pennsylvania, NAFTA was a disaster. Her husband signed it. Doesn't have the stamina. I know about dealing with China. I've made billions of dollars dealing with China. China can be dealt with, and you can get along with them. But Hillary does not have the strength or the stamina to deal with China. One of the big problems our country has is problems with trade, where you have China, Japan, Mexico, so many countries just ripping us left and right. The politicians cannot handle that problem. Two reasons. Number one, they don't have the competence to do it. Number two, most of them are paid off through campaign contributions so that they don't touch certain things that the people want touched. When people are making less money in real wages than they were 18 years ago, and then some people say, wow, he had a big crowd. That's one of the big reasons. I mean, you have people making less money today, as you know, because you see every stat. Less money today, David, than they made 18 years ago. And in some cases, they're working two jobs. So they're getting older and they're working harder. Shouldn't be that way. Will not be good with the military. She will not be good with protecting our country. And she's had her shot. And she also raised her hand when it came to Iraq. And she shouldn't have voted. And if you remember, just take a look at the things that Bernie Sanders was saying about Hilary Clinton. She said she's not qualified. He said she is not qualified to be president. But he said something else that was disqualified. What's qualified? I mean, you got to go out, you got to run, and you see what happens. But he said some things about her that were so incredible, and so incredibly bad. There's a great level of hatred right there, but he's been telling the truth. And I really mean it. I think Bernie Sanders should run as an independent. I think he'd do great. Okay. People that I really can't even know how they can do it. Because I can tell you, Paul can tell you, we're getting calls from people where I actually say, how can you do this? How can you do this? How can you do it? They kept saying, he doesn't hit the 50%. Well, now they don't say that anymore. But how do you hit 50% when you have 16 people in a race? You can't do it. Unless she gets herself indicted with respect to what's happening with the emails, okay? What I don't understand, you look at what's happened to so many other people, and they went through hell. Their lives have been destroyed for doing less than what Hilary Clinton did. What she did is an outrage. It's an absolute criminal outrage. And for her to be able to run as a Democrat, that's why maybe Bernie Sanders isn't finished. But the only way you can say that is if something happens to her. She's being protected by the Democrats because what she did, and I see it, and whether I read about it in the papers or I watch it with experts, legal experts on television, virtually every single one of them said what she did is a criminal act, and what she did is a very, very dangerous thing for our country. And yet here she is running for president. So I think that Hillary, honestly, she's a flawed candidate. And I think she's going to be easy to beat. I think she's going to be much easier to beat than most of the 16 people that I competed with just recently. Go ahead. 2 more days in Ohio, I would have won it. Okay. Immigration. If you look at what's going on in immigration and just look at the record numbers of people right now that are pouring across the borders of this country, they're pouring, excuse me, I just read it. And I read it in actually a legitimate journal. All right. We need protection in our country. By the way, I want people to come into our country, but I want them to come in legally. They have to